evening. Bruce honored me by asking me to introduce him tonight for the Leonard Ring Award. And I've been lucky enough to know Bruce as a boss, as a partner, and as a friend for more than 2 decades now. I can tell you for certain that he truly loves the law. He loves this organization. He cares deeply, deeply about the people who are injured at the hands of others. And he cares deeply about the lawyers in this organization who do the same thing. I know this award means so much to Bruce, in part because it's always nice to have people recognize you for as much time as he's spent for this organization, and he's spent thousands of hours, and that's probably an embarrassing understatement. But also because he had a great respect and admiration for Leonard, and his name carries a lot of weight with Bruce in particular. So it's an honor for him to get this, and I'm really happy to introduce him here. I clerked during law school at Hofeld and Schaffner, and I remember the day I first met Bruce. Well, I remember the day I first saw Bruce. The day I first saw him, I tailed Howard Schaffner over to the Daly Center to watch the arguments in the trial court of Best versus Taylor. And in a large courtroom with awesome lawyers, many of whom are in this room, Bruce, as a younger than some, really stood out. And that is typical of his role in this organization and in our field for so long. Having worked with Bruce for 27 years, I can tell you firsthand the amount of time he spent with ITLA. And he is a tireless worker, so it never seems like, oh, I'm stressed, I got to deal with that stuff. He just plows through regular work, then he plows through his ITLA work. And it goes hand in hand. It's not like a separate thing for him. It's all part of the practice of law. I tried to come up with just some of the highlights, even just off memory from my years of watching him with ITLA. And Best versus Taylor first and foremost, because not only was it the first time I saw him in action, but it's the case that prevents her from being caps in Illinois, and it's why we're all doing well and able to represent our clients. That's a big one. We won't forget that. He spent over 10 years on the IPI committee. He was appointed by the Supreme Court for the IPI committee, where he was a tireless advocate for all of us, and rewrote a number of the instructions, rewrote the entire 400 series for product liability, and really it was a dark day for ITLA when he had to get off the committee after his term was up, because not many people, as you know, having worked with him, not many people care as much or put as much time into it and have the ability to do that. So his work there is, every time you get an instruction from that book, Bruce has had his hand in it. In 2011, he chaired the Supreme Court e-business committee. He was asked to chair that committee. That committee is a one-year ad hoc committee that ended up putting forth e-filing and the electronic case management system that even Cook County does. Isn't that amazing? We still have carbon paper, but we have e-filing. It's great. Bruce has been the chair of the amicus committee for ITLA since 1994. He's authored over 40 briefs himself as amicus curiae. He continues to this day to monitor the appellate opinions and send out emails and try to scare up other excellent ITLA attorneys to write these briefs. And as a result, the law is better for it, and our clients are doing better for it. Most recently, Bruce's mantle was the prejudgment interest. Bruce appeared in every case where the constitutionality was challenged. Every single case, all across the state. We had limited appearances in all those cases. Bruce argued countless motions all over the state. Some he had to go to, some he was able to do by Zoom. And it's worked out really good for all of us and for all of our clients. We're now seeing the benefits of the PJI, and it's in large part to Bruce's hard work. So I just wanted to give some examples of the work he's done for ITLA over the years in my introduction to him. And I'm sure I'm just scratching the surface, and you may know things that he did that I didn't even pay attention to. So those are some of the highlights. Now, bear in mind that while Bruce has given so much to ITLA, at the same time, he was also prosecuting and winning really difficult injury cases and death cases. And Many of those cases effectuated change across our society and have made all of our lives better. And I think that's part and parcel of being a member of ITLA, helping people out with their cases and getting some help from on your own cases. He and my partner Matt Ports tried the Ocaro case together. In Ocaro, he proved that a cardiologist at Edgewater Hospital was pulling people off the street and doing unnecessary cardiac catheterizations and billing them to Medicare, which apparently you're not allowed to do. Unfortunately, we represented the family of a gentleman who was one of the people who died during an unnecessary procedure. And as a result of that case, the family was taken care of. Dr. Kubria went to jail, and Edgewater Hospital closed because it was rife with fraud. Bruce and I tried a couple of cases against Ford Motor Company before Judge Flannery, where the product defect was that in rear impacts, front seats in Ford vehicles would collapse. And it would subject the clients, our two really awesome clients in both these cases, to horrific injuries. As a result of that case, in large part, and with our work with people across the country on similar cases with those defects, the seats are stronger now. We don't see those cases as much as we used to. So we're all better off, both as lawyers and as members of society, thanks to Bruce's efforts. An interesting thing about Bruce is he stays close with his clients. He's still friends with clients we've represented years and years ago. A couple of examples, he and Deborah started a scholarship in honor of Riley Spreadberry, who's a client, a living client, awesome awesome girl who they started a scholarship fund at Moraine Valley. And every year, Bruce meets with Riley, and they go through the applicants, and they meet with the top 10, and they give out scholarships. Don't tell anybody, but they give out scholarships to all of them. And that's made a big difference in a lot of people's lives. He started a scholarship for future lawyers at his alma mater at Hastings. And he and Deborah have started a scholarship for veterinary students in honor of their daughter, Liza, who's a veterinarian out in Colorado. So he gives back throughout his life, and ITLA is a huge benefactor of all that. Bruce has always given every task his utmost attention. He's given it his utmost effort, and he's treated ITLA as one of his most special clients for decades and decades and decades. And while he's stepping away from litigation now, I know that Bruce will continue to work with ITLA to continue to make our lives better and to continue to enable us to do the best job we can for our clients. So with that, I'd like to introduce my partner and friend, Bruce Pfaff.
I had to write a few things down because I would be embarrassed if I forgot some things that were important to me. But I want everybody here to know that this is the greatest honor I could ever get as a lawyer. You are my friends, you are my people. I love ITLA, I always have. I loved Leonard Ring, and you know, Mike told a bit about Leonard, but just as a small anecdote, before the Tylenol poisoning cases were tried, there were 5 firms, and they decided Mr. Corboy, Mr. Ring, and I would be the trial lawyers for all the 7 decedents' estates. And Phil Leonard and I started meeting 6 months before trial. And after the second meeting, Corboy said, well, where's the liability? You and Leonard are the liability lawyers. I'll just do damages, which was a classic move. I loved it. I'm not sure I adopted it ever, but it was quite a move. And then after a pretrial hearing, which Mr. Corboy was great at interesting the media in what he did, there were always cameras outside the courtroom. And Leonard gave me one bit of advice that I never forgot, which is don't get between Corboy and a camera. And thankfully that case worked out, but Leonard and I became friends, and obviously I was tremendously saddened by his death, but he was a great example to me. There are a lot of reasons I'm here. I'll start with my wife, who suggested that we move here in 1984 in a very polite way. And I said, we'll try it for 2 years, and here we are. Second on the list, interestingly enough, is Mr. Clifford. Now, Bob Clifford worked for Corboy until July of 1984. He started a firm which has done fairly well. Everybody in that firm I consider a friend, a colleague, and someone I look up to. In August of '84, I moved into Bob's desk and got his legal assistant as my legal assistant. I've been practicing in California for a while. So Bob and I have always had a connection. And if Bob hadn't left, Corboy wouldn't have hired me and I wouldn't be here. I'd still be in San Francisco with a firm that is nothing like any of the firms here. So I'm very grateful to Bob and to Phil for having hired me. I attended my first amicus meeting. Bill Hart was there. The amicus award that we give out to those who write the briefs is the William J. Hart Award. Bill was brilliant, sardonic, sarcastic, the wittiest, serious man I've ever met. And he led the amicus committee for many years and taught me a great deal about the appellate practice. Michael was kind enough to mention the efforts that I've made in PJI, but you know, I came in at the end. The godfather of prejudgment interest is Larry Rogers Jr., and those people who led this organization in 2020 and 2021 who got the legislation passed. If it weren't for their efforts and their ability to convince the legislature and the governor, after 2 bills were passed, finally the second one was signed, to make that the law, we would not be where we are today with PJI. Shortly after the bill was passed, the defense filed all these challenges, we had a PJI subcommittee of amicus. And I won't embarrass these people by telling you who they are because they did great work. We had a master brief that was edited, re-edited, cut and pasted, moved it into other courtrooms, et cetera. But from the Clifford office, Yvette Loizan and Keith Habeisen were there every step of the way. Nick Nepustil from Benjamin and Shapiro did tremendous work, and he actually authored the one amicus brief that was filed. Leslie Rosen, tremendous work. Larry Jr., obviously, and Matt Dudley were all part of that committee. We made the decision that I would file an appearance in all of those cases, an additional appearance on behalf of the plaintiff, because amicus lawyers don't get to argue. And I had the benefit of our committee's work. So I was able to take that knowledge and make it work for us. Were it not for Larry Jr. getting it started, the executive committee getting it going, and our subcommittee, we would not have succeeded like we did. ITLA has many core functions that I would be apt at doing. And that's what I love about ITLA, because a guy who likes the law and who likes to write has a place. That's what I do. Could I ever be someone to write legislation or go down and lobby in Springfield to legislatures? I'd be lousy at that. I'm pretty lousy at fundraising. So the nice thing is about ITLA is there are many jobs that all of us can do. You need to just pick your spot and do it. I had a moment in the late 80s when ITLA had a superstar seminar, and I heard Jerry Spence speak. And at the time, he was famous for being Karen Silkwood's lawyer and being a guy from Wyoming who wore buckskin coats and who talked fast and was smart. But he held a room captive of plaintiffs' lawyers for 40 minutes saying what motivated him to do what he did, to take the risks that he did, the same risks that you and I do every day. 2 things, fear and anger. Those were his motivators. Anger at what those people did to your client, and fear that you might not be able to prove it. Fear that you'd come up short. Well, that motivated me, and that has motivated my law practice, because I never want to be in a position to tell a client, we got nothing, we're going home. Now, fear and anger does make you a little warped. In the words of my friend Chris Ford, it can make you a little nutty. We're all a little nutty, and I'm guilty as charged. I think each of us knows that we have the benefit of talking to each other as ITLA members as brother and sister to talk about our problems and what we have going, so that maybe when we go home, we're a more humane spouse and a more humane parent. But it's a job that's difficult. Don't ever underestimate that. I wanted to thank two appellate giants who have helped me and who've helped ITLA for 2 decades or more. One of them's here tonight at our table, Mike Rassak. And but for a family commitment, our good friend Mike Reagan would be at the same table. These gentlemen have bailed my ass out from time to time. They have helped my clients. They have helped ITLA. They are firmly committed to what we do. They are really smart people, and we're very thankful to have that relationship. As Michael mentioned, I had the good sense to hire him in 1997, and the good sense to hire Matthew Ports in the year 2000. Michael and Matt, we began our relationship. They were rookie associates. We had one other associate at the time. And they became really good associates. They became fellow shareholders. And now they're the owners of the practice that I founded more than 30 years ago. I'm proud that they own it. I know that they will do great things with the practice. The firm will soon have a new name, which is good because they deserve the credit. They're doing the work that's going to achieve the results that everyone expects of our office. And I know that you will continue to help them as they will continue to help all the members of ITLA. I'm not going to be involved in litigation cases anymore other than my role with ITLA amicus, which I've talked to Sarah, and she said she'd be nice enough to reappoint me for this upcoming year. As long as I make sense and the current president will allow me, I'd love to continue in this role because I love it. The only other things I'm going to be doing, frankly, is taking care of Mrs. Pfaff, which is the job I've sort of neglected for the last 45 years when I've been practicing law. I can't thank you all enough for this tremendous honor.